So talking about 2.5 Dimensional Seduction. Rawr. I don't know. Every time I think of the word seduction, I actually expect some type of seduction. But I will say this is... I actually think it's a really good romance. And one of the things I thought was interesting when I was actually looking at the anime, because I'd watched a little bit of it and then ended up letting it fully air out, and then I decided, you know what, I'm going to binge watch it. There are a couple of things that I'm going to talk about that are definitely going to be spicy in this, but overall, I think it's a really solid romance, which is funny because I looked at a couple of sites and there was no romance tag on it, and I was like, wait, this really has like a lot of romance aspects in it. Mostly it just gets tagged as comedy, ecchi, harem, otaku culture, and school, which I'm like, okay, those all make sense. The harem aspect, it's a little bit more questionable because I mainly only see two girls as the main love interests. Maybe you could count the other girls kind of like having little crushes on him, but I generally feel that it's mostly focused on two particular girls because, again, it's got to be... Wow, I think I forgot. It's 3 or more girls so it has to be 3 or more because at this point it's a love triangle. But I mean, you could argue, yeah, with the other girls in there and in the mix, it makes a good harem. But I just feel like generally the romance is focused on the two individuals, the childhood friend and the girl that he's met that is this big otaku that's kind of drawn him into this new world. And I feel like most of the romance development happens in the last episode, like the most amount. Like, there's a lot of drip feeding and breadcrumbing throughout the entire season, which I think is good. I think the pacing in that's pretty okay-ish, other than it feels like sometimes like Dragon Ball Z, where it's like 3 episodes to go over like a photo shoot at a convention, and I'm like, okay, we don't need to go over this over and over and over again, and the big long epic speeches, but I don't think that was really that bad. It's pretty well paced as far as all things considered. I do really enjoy that otaku culture, because whenever you look at this series, a lot of people will compare it to My Dress Up Darling, because My Dress Up Darling does the whole otaku culture, cosplaying, romance, while this also does the similar stuff, but it's not as focused on the itty-gritty details of the cosplay. And what I mean by that is the creation of the cosplay. My Dress Up Darling goes into a lot more of how some of the cosplays are made and the materials involved. There is some material stuff in this, but not nearly to the detail as My Dress Up Darling. The other thing, though, too, is My Dress Up Darling is not a harem. It is a sort of a romance between one girl, one guy, and that building that relationship, while this is tagged as a harem, but for me, it's mostly focused on him and the 2 girls that generally seem to have the most interest in him. I do wonder with season 2 where that's going to go, because like I said, the last episode, which is kind of like a 2-parter beach episode, where they both of them end up talking to each other saying, yes, I've got feelings for him, and they both kind of end up admitting, yes, we've got feelings for him, and then he hears it, and then the teacher hears it, and then the teacher's kind of giving some advice to him. But then you also find out more backstory on him as well, why he feels the way that he does, which I think is actually good to finally have a reasoning why, not just it be one of those cringy reasons of like, oh, I'm so enamored in my culture that I just don't like women. And it's like, okay, is there actually a reason, or is it just you're just being weird? But there's actually a reason why, and it seems to be much more deeper, and I feel that there's going to be some major development going forward with that part of it, which I think is absolutely great. And I think there's a decent chunk of development for him as time goes on. It's not thrown heaps in your face. Like I said, most of the development happens on the final episode, but there is breadcrumbs throughout the entire other 23 episodes, because 24 is the final episode. So I feel like there's so much development that is breadcrumb amongst it all, while also adding in a bunch of different other characters. I do also like the fact that the characters stay relevant and are kind of like building that friendship and working together and doing group cosplays. I would say my only gripe on that aspect is the fact that she seems to really only do one cosplay. Yeah, she does like a spin-off different version of Lilia, but it is one of those where it's like, okay, you're only doing one cosplay character. And I'm like, it would be nice going into season 2 that they do try and do something a little bit different, like other characters, than just one. Because I do feel like if they just focus on the one character, to me, it's one of those where it's like, I get, in cosplay culture, you know, some people will wear the same cosplay quite a lot, but it's just from the story perspective, I'd like to see a little bit more variation. I get why they don't put as much variation, because she has all the friends joining in and they add their own cosplays to that collection. So it's like a big group cosplay, and he does his own as well, and which I was actually happy to see at the end, because I was like, you know, it'd be really good actually if he cosplayed as well. And I just like the fact that, yeah, they build on that. I think one of the reasons why I kind of like these animes is because I used to do cosplay myself. Wasn't the best at it, but I used to enjoy it. I really enjoyed the atmosphere, the somewhat culture to it. But I think what drove me away from it, just personal experience, was the very... don't want to use the wrong word because of YouTube, but the very B culture, the very like cat claws getting out and very narky and stuff, and that's generally a lot on like girl on girl stuff, because it's generally dominated by women. Like, women generally dominate the cosplay community, which is fine, but it makes it really hard for a guy to get into cosplay, because it's an uphill battle, because for me it's like, okay, I want to cosplay as guy characters, but the thing is, as a guy, that's it. I like have my selection. I mean, maybe I could do a female character, do a gender bender, but it's a lot harder for me, I feel, to do that, while a lot of chicks would do like both. They'd be able to do the female characters and some would do the male characters. And I just remember when there was like a Fire Emblem cosplay group that was in my local area, and I was like, oh, I'll do like, and they specifically only wanted one per character, right? They didn't want any overlap. And it was literally all the chicks just took all the characters, male and female characters, and it was just like, okay, so there's like nothing for any males to do. It was just like, it was only a female group, except like one guy that was like friends with most of the girls that got in, that was like allowed to. It was like, it just kind of really sucked. And I'm saying that, but technically, yeah. It kind of sucked how you kind of get shunned out of the group when it comes to cosplays if you try and do those kinds of things. And it's like, oh, just do a cosplay like other people do and enjoy it. And it's like, yeah, that's I personally did a lot of different cosplays that other groups did as well. And you try to add variation. You want to feel like you're doing something unique and not just copying the same person, because it's like, you see a lot of photos where there's like 20, 30, 50, 100 of the same cosplays, and that can be fun. But at the same time, you also get shunned as well. That's what I mean about the cosplay community. It can be very narky. Like, you can just do a character that you just really love and enjoy, but at the same time, people will get the claws out and be like, oh, well, you're copying me, kind of thing. So then you feel guilty, so you try to do something unique and different. And so it is kind of nice that the anime delves into that as well. I know I'm getting a bit of my own personal experience with cosplay, but it just kind of like, it's interesting to see some of the anime delve into it, but it's more from a female's perspective. So it's like, you can see some of it, but also Japan's cosplay culture compared to, say, like Australian cosplay culture is very different. So it's just one of the reasons why I ended up quitting cosplay, just too narky and too all over the place. And I also just didn't really have a lot of time and resources to allocate towards it. The main issue, though, that I have with this anime, and I mean it's a massive issue, is the dub. If you are wanting to get into this series, do not watch the dub. I watched the sub and the dub because I had the dub going and I was reading the sub at the same time. The dub is absolutely atrocious. It is the worst thing I've listened to in a while. The dub is completely different to what the sub is, and at many points it removes entire context. I still remember one of them where, I can't remember exactly what character it was, but the character was responding to someone. That's right. It was Lilia and Sensei, the teacher. And they're talking to each other, and she just says, okay, in the dub when they're talking. And the whole point of it is Lilia realizing, or the girl cosplaying as it, realizing that that's the teacher. So in context, her saying sensei makes sense because it's that realization, because there's like a bit of a flashback of like, oh, you're sensei, you're that other cosplayer, and them saying that, but in the dub, it's just okay. And I'm just like, I get the excuse is always going to be, yeah, but the word sensei is a Japanese word. I don't care. Use the word sensei in that context because that is the correct word that needs to be used for subbed and dubbed. If you don't know what the word is and you're watching the anime, then learn what the word is. In those specific situations, that word is really important to the context, so keep it there. And again, this is the thing, you treat your audience like idiots that they are unable to learn what that word means. And people say, well, you could always just change it to the word teacher. And it's like, no, sensei is a really important word because it has a multitude of different meanings. And so to me, and I'm just using that as one example of many throughout the dub, where it was just like, they just change things unnecessarily and they treat their audience like idiots. It's just like, that should have been stayed as that word. It's just one example. The dub is absolutely terrible. It is garbage. Absolute garbage. It changes entire contexts to sentences, changes complete structures to what the conversation is about. And as soon as I just finally got rid, because I watched a bit of the dub while also reading the sub to just get a good idea of how far this issue went through, I just got to a point where I just stopped watching the dub and I was just the sub, and it just felt like a whole better experience. Like, just the sub is that bad. It is absolutely terrible. Whoever did the dub for it should be fired and should never be let near another project again. That is my pure rant. Other than that, the anime is great. It's absolutely phenomenal. It is a great comedy, romance, harem, otaku culture kind of comedy sort of feel. And so if you do like My Dress Up Darling and want something with a little bit more of a different kind of spin to it, with that, and you're okay with ecchi and harem, because there is a bit more ecchi in it, then yeah, this will be great for you. But if you are sitting there debating on the sub versus the dub, do not watch the dub. The dub is just absolutely horrible, because it changes so much of the characters and conversations and relationships. It just felt so off. It was just like the most out of place, out of pocket, out of context to stuff. And I just, when I was thinking about doing this review, I was like, I have to save this for the end, because I don't want people to think that I'm ragging on the anime, because the anime is phenomenal. The dub is just terrible. So it's its own isolated issue. As far as Season 2 goes, yes, there is a Season 2 announcement. Currently, as of recording this, there is no release date, so I'm curious to see where the relationship goes from that perspective, because I feel like in Season 2, there's going to be so much more development on the romance aspect, because he knows how they feel. So he's got the childhood friend, but he also says in Season 1 that he doesn't really like her. And this is the one thing I really liked about this, is that he actually now has to come to terms with him giving a rejection to the girl that he doesn't like, because it's very clear that he likes Ririsa, is how I think you pronounce her, right? So he clearly likes her, so clearly she is going to be the winner, but the other girl's got to lose. So it's nice to actually see him coming to terms with the fact that he's like, hey, I really care about this other girl, that my childhood friend, and realizing the whole situation back then. But it's like the realization that he's actually got to hurt her, because the rejection is going to really, really, really sting. That's the thing I really like about it. And I actually kind of wish more harems would actually do that, because it kind of is annoying when you've got a harem and the main protagonist finally realizes that all these girls like them, and they kind of almost just nonchalantly go, yeah, whatever, reject. And it's just like, okay, you are breaking the heart of someone you care about. Like, is there not some, like, conflicting feelings going on? So I really love how the actual anime dealt with that. So I'm really excited to see where Season 2 goes on that, because clearly there's going to be build up through this. The more relationship building, and they're clearly going to be trying to sort of fight for his attention and affection and stuff like that, and maybe he might start getting more conflicted and feeling like, oh, well, maybe I like her as well, but I like that tug of war between two girls that really like him, and him being tied on it. Maybe he should just hook up with both. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just that tug of war that he's got to feel. But I generally feel like Ririsa is the one that will win, and that makes sense, because their bond is very strong, and their constant connection building and all the rest. So, and plus, yeah, she cosplays as the character that he really loves. So again, love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.